Welcome, my name is Colleen Tauke, and I am the sewing specialist at Fons & Porter. In this tutorial, we're going to create 4 different placemats, and it's called Table for 4. For the pattern for this, visit our website. Okay, we're going to be using 2.5-inch strips, some really fun bright fabrics, and we're going to pair it with a yellow to make the fabrics really pop in the colors. Now we have 4 different styles here. You could, in fact, go in and make 4 of the same, or you could make 4 different ones. So let's have some fun. We're going to take 2 strips at the beginning to make the first one, and table runner number 1 is one. We're going to create a checkerboard to go in it. So the checkerboard looks like this. We're going to use 2 strips, cut the length that it tells you in the pattern. It's about 23 or 24 inches long. The rest you're going to set aside to use for binding at the end. So then from this strip set, press your seam allowances towards the darker of the 2 fabrics. And you're going to cut segments to make the checkerboard. And if your fabrics aren't the same length at the end, you'll want to overcut your first piece. So let's walk our way through that. We need 2.5-inch wide segments. So we're going to cut about 2 3/4 or so at the beginning. We're going to line up a horizontal line on our ruler with the seam allowance on our strip set and cut the first piece, then rotate and make sure that we get a nice 2.5-inch strip to start. 1, 2 1/2. It's always best to count to make sure you're in the right place, or you'll have one wider or narrower than you need. And then just continue down the strip set, matching outer edge with the line on the ruler, and again one that goes perpendicular to it, and continue cutting all the way down. You'll need 2, 4, 6, 7 pieces for this table runner, or this placemat, and then you will take your blocks, alternate your red and orange, and create the checkerboard effect like this. Down through, press your seam allowances all in one direction, and you've created the strip that goes through your placemat. Now you'll need, according to the instructions, you'll need a rectangle on one side, and you will be cutting these to a 12.5-inch length, because we're working with leftover pieces and creating wonderful projects. We're going to have you cut that pieced area to 12.5 inches. So in order to do that, we would come in, and we need 12.5 on our ruler, and we're going to center it so that we get the piece out that we want. And we're going to try to divide up the leftover spacing, so we're going to cut about here. So we're going to come to 12.5, and I'm going to rotate my mat just so I can make a nice neat cut. Trim here, and then turn our ruler. We've devised the patterns so that we could use a lot of the strips that we've had remaining from our previous projects. Great way to make a hostess gift or a Christmas present for someone. So here we go. We can divide up the space, even or uneven, however it turns out. Then you would join these to create your placemat. Now, that's placemat number, or letter A. Second one, we're going to work with another set of strip sets like this, and we're going to be cutting diamond shapes. We're trying to get to this. This is our end goal. So in order to cut off of this strip, we're going to take a ruler. On your ruler, you'll notice there are different degree of angles, 60, 45, and 30. We want the 45-degree line, so when we turn it over, we're going to take a piece of painter's tape, and we're going to place it along the 45-degree line, like this. It's going to be our guide for when we come in to cut. Now, when we lay it onto our strip, you'll notice we can lay that painter's tape right along the bottom of our strip. And what we want is to stay on the strip, but right to the corner. Okay? So we've got it positioned correctly. We're going to make our first little cut. Take this piece off like that. Whoops. And then we want to cut 2.5-inch increments along our strip set. So now we're not going to be using the diagonal at this point. We're going to use 2.5 inch on the normal, what we normally would use to measure when we're cutting with a rotary cutter. 1, 2 1/2 matches up with the cut line there. So then we're going to come across and cut segments and continue cutting like that all the way down the strip. 1, 2 1/2. There's a diagram in a pattern, so it'll tell you exactly how to place everything. And that way you'll get the accurate cutting you want and the shapes you're looking for. Okay, so you would continue all the way down. Now, we have to rearrange in order to create this. So, if we look at, I'm just going to pretend that's my diagram, like in my pattern, and I would orient it like this. Then one with light, with dark. And I have some spare parts since we didn't get time to cut everything. Okay, we'll lay this one here. Now, there's one extra piece right here. Remember that first cut we made? This little piece? He can go right here. Now, join rows together, just like you would do when you were piecing. You are going to want to come in with a pin. If you want these intersections to be just like they kiss, point to point, you're going to want to take a pin, go approximately 1/4 inch from, or at 1/4 inch from the cut edge down into the seam, and then on the piece underneath, do the exact same thing, 1/4 inch in from the cut edge, and put a pin matching those two intersections. It's kind of a tricky thing at first, the first time you do it, but the more times you do it, the better you get. So we're going to leave this one in as kind of the North Pole, keeping everything together, and then we're going to put a little pin in, take a nice little bite through all the layers, hold those together, and we'll 1/4 inch seam all along here. And that will be creating these seams. And I'll show you the back side. Here we go. I've pressed all the seam allowances in one direction here, and that creates this piece that you see. Now, again, this is going to be an oversized piece, so you're going to want to come in and cut a 12 1/2 inch piece, again, just like we did with the checkerboard, and then that will be the column for your second placemat. Now we're on to placemat number 3. This is a piece that goes into the third placemat. Again, we're going to create strip sets, and then we're going to be cutting it apart. I'll simulate what our strip set was, a red and a purple. I cut it apart just like we did in the checkerboard one. Now you'll see that there's kind of a jump back and forth. And what we did is added a rectangle as a spacer, and it makes a completely different pattern than just a checkerboard. So what we've created here, we'll just simulate it right here. We've got the piece added at the end, so now it's a rectangle, 2 squares. The next piece would come in, and the rectangle is added to the purple side this time. Next step would be to add the rectangle to the red side, and then all of a sudden you realize that there's a pattern going on. We've created now this design. Again, I've marked here 12 1/2 inches is what we want out of this piece for our placemat. So that's placemat number 3. Now we're on to the last one. The last one's kind of fun because it's triangles. And we don't always use triangles very often, but this is an interesting way to create a different design. So here we have what we're going for. This is what our aim is. Creating a strip set, 2 pieces, seamed, seam allowance pressed to one direction again. In the pattern you'll find the template for a triangle. It looks like this. It has a little flat top on it. I've cut it out of template plastic, and I've actually marked it because once I get done doing one, I might decide I want to make some more of those, and I don't want to go off searching for the template, so marked it, which pattern and what page it was found on, so I can use it again. Now, for using this, we're going to lay the template plastic on the strip. We're going to match the bottom, since I've written on it, now you know which is the bottom of the template, along one of the sides. And we're going to use the outer edges of this strip set as the bottom of our block each time. And I'm just going to come in and draw lines. I'm just going to follow it along. It's kind of a traditional way to transfer a pattern. We're going back to the old ways. Sometimes they work the best. And that would mean there's one cut from here The next one I'm going to turn, the long side is going to be the top of my strip, and I would mark that same way all the way along. And then you'll notice you're going to be using up the entire strip set back and forth, walking your template back and forth across the strip set. Then you can take your rotary cutter and lay it on top and cut away these pieces. Like that. There's one here. So now you've created two different blocks. The base of one is light, the base of the other is dark. And now it's just a combination of placing these triangles in the same manner as this. Pretend this is the diagram in the pattern. You're just going to join together triangles like this, alternating back and forth. It almost looks like part of a hexagon. Okay, when you're joining these, because they have a blunted end, you put them right sides together to piece them, and you'll notice that that little blunt end lets you know exactly where to place the pieces together. And you would just simply 1/4 inch seam there and press outward. Be gentle because these are all bias edges on triangles, but you can create this strip set and then cut away again, 12.5 inch segment, add the yellow small or narrow rectangle and the larger square, and you've got table for 4. For more of our tutorials, visit our website. Thanks for joining me today.